Well, here we are, another stop on the journey to finding hope, inspiration, and positivity in this crazy world we all live in. You are listening to Changing the Perspective podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and like this video below. If you are listening on a podcast service, please like our podcast on your preferred service. No matter how you choose to hear this interview, we are grateful you are following us on this journey. New interviews will be released weekly and cover a variety of topics that all bring a situation of struggle that end in positivity. Maybe you can relate to an interview topic, or maybe you just need some hope and inspiration. Either way, enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome to another wonderful interview of Changing Their Perspective. Today, I'm actually with someone I've never met before. We connected on a Women of Podcasting group that I joined on Facebook to just get some good community around me starting this project, and posted one time and got some amazing people that have come forward, all women, which was super cool to be a part of. And Miss Laura was one of the very first people that answered me. And her story is about domestic violence. And based off of kind of what she told me, it resonated and I related based off of what I have been through. And I said, absolutely, let's do this. So with us today is Laura Moseley from my Facebook podcasting group. Good to actually see a face. You know, we see profiles and that's about it.
Right.
Good to actually see a face in person, and I appreciate you joining us today. So, tell us where this started and what all happened for you.
I appreciate you having me. Again, my name is Laura Moseley. I am a single mom of three. Two of them are adults and are still living at home, which is okay. And I started off, you never start in domestic violence, it always works its way up. But I met my ex husband when I was 18 years old, he was 20. And we worked together and decided we liked one another and started going out. Although it should have been a red flag, but when you're 18, there are no such things as red flags, really.
It's true.
It's just part of youth. We were kind of secretive about it, and I felt like my mom and dad wouldn't exactly approve of him. He wasn't horrible. He just lived on his own and didn't really communicate a whole lot with his family. So I knew my parents well enough to know that they wouldn't have accepted that. So we dated for a couple of months, found out we were pregnant, but we'd already talked about getting married. So had to tell my parents that wasn't fun at all. And we ended up getting married a few months after that. And I was 19 and he was 21 when we welcomed our first child. And life seemed okay at that point. I mean, when you're 19 and 21, a lot of times, there's always differences of opinion, being young and passionate and all of that. So nothing really stands out until my oldest was 18 months old. And my husband at the time got physical. I don't even remember so much what it was about. I think he was going to go spend some money, and I was like, we don't really have it. And I got grabbed and shoved up against the wall, and that scared me. And tried to leave, but getting married so young, before I met him, I was going to go to college. I was going to be a journalist. I was going to be really successful. So when I got married, I had relatives that said, "Oh, well, that's okay. She'll just be a great wife and mommy." And that was okay, but I wanted to be somebody successful as well, not just in that realm. So, but coming from a large Catholic family, everything was centered around, nobody in my family divorced, no
Mhm.
one.
Yes.
So, that wasn't an option. Failure has never been an option
Yes.
in my lifestyle, but it it just happened to be, I forgave him, and it's amazing how much give and take there is in a domestic relationship where it only really escalates and gets worse, gets varied. So throughout the whole marriage, we had three children, had to deal with a lot of physical, but not as much as mental and emotional and financial, which I didn't even know was a thing. but
Oh,
financial
yeah.
abuse is a thing.
Oh, yeah.
So, but throughout all of this, and it's funny, and when you look in hindsight, everybody says, "Oh, I had no idea." Well, why would you? I just had to keep going forward. I would forgive him and, move on, and he'd do something else and forgive him and, move forward. That's about all you can do. It's not up. You can't just stop and freeze and that be it. Unfortunately, you have to keep going. And because when people say, "I don't know how you did it," I would say, "Well, I don't know how I did it either. I just did." So, but I mean, over a period of time, I realized he had addiction problems. Um, Marijuana, which I don't really personally care for, but that didn't bother me as much. Then drinking, then, other substances, mainly drinking, because drinking is legal.
Yeah.
And, but I noticed as we went on, the drinking got more and more and more. And when things would go kind of south, he would drink because I drove him to it.
Oh, yeah.
But
It's
that
always
the
your fault.
drinking, yeah, but the drinking was what caused the problem.
Yeah.
So it was just a big conundrum. But
Mhm.
and I really, really noticed it with my last child. Um, our first two were a boy and a girl. So I wanted, a few more. He was like, "Up, they don't come in any other kind. We're just gonna have one of each. We're good." And I thought, that is fine. I love my children, but was found out I was pregnant with my third one and was accused of trapping him somehow. I was already married to him. I was just like, well, it happened to both of us. So, but he really, I guess, amped up the torment through that pregnancy. And I had a lot of problems. That was probably my biggest pregnancy with the biggest problems. I had gestational diabetes, and I had to be on bed rest some, and high blood pressure, hypertension, things like that. So I had a lot of health issues, which inconvenienced him, but I had to still continue to
Of
keep
course.
going on.
Yeah.
So, and then, throughout all this, also, he would a lot of times just, "Oh, I'm not going to work," or, "I'm going to quit that job. They don't know what they're talking about," or, "I got fired." Or a lot of times it was, "I didn't like that job." Well, or he got fired because of substance issues.
Mhm.
And I just had to continually carry things on, which for one little person is a lot of responsibility. Marriage is supposed to be give and take.
Yeah.
Sometimes this person falters and this one helps pick them up, and vice versa. That didn't happen. And but then I was always the problem. I was always the reason he drank, or he lost his job, or what have you.
Mhm.
So it got to be, and as this goes on, it eats away at your psyche, it eats away at your self-esteem, and you're like, wow, I am just a horrible human being.
Yes.
And this last pregnancy, what got me is I had to have a C-section. My other two were natural. um so it was weird going in and going, yeah, we're here to have a baby, and not being in labor. But um we had to have the C-section because my youngest was sitting in my pelvis like it was a hammock, I guess, and which is how he lives his whole life. He's 14 now. That's same thing. But
Yeah.
he, so I had a lot of problem with him. I had to stay in the hospital longer,
Mhm.
and recovering from a C-section. When you have a C-section, they don't just cut. You think, oh, they just cut you open, they pull the baby out. No, there's layers, and it's
Mhm.
just so painful. I had no idea that pain like that could exist. But the nice thing is in the hospital, they make sure you're taking your medication and you're eating, and it's so nice to be waited on. I didn't want to leave,
Yeah.
but so he had taken a couple weeks off from work, unpaid, to take care of me. And I get home. I really had a hard time coming home and knowing what I was coming home to, but trying to get in the mode of taking care of a baby, trying to make sure I took my pain meds. Um, but then he'd disappear and go hang out with people, but not be taking care of me. So I had an 8-year-old at the time. She took care of me. She was mommy's helper. Um, but I got up at one point, I had to take a pain pill, and I asked my, I had to ask my 18-year or my 8-year-old and my 13-year-old to come help me get up because I was in so much pain. They were gone. He'd taken them.
Oh.
First, I thought, I asked the 13-year-old, I'm like, "Do you know what happened? Where's my pills?" "I don't know." And I don't think he did, but come to find out, he overheard later his dad talking to because when he got back, my husband got back, I said, "I don't know where my pain meds are, and I'm in so much pain." I mean, I was throwing up. It hurt that bad.
Mhm.
He said, "Oh, like I would know where that is." But then my teenager overhears my husband later on talking to somebody saying, "Make sure you don't tell Laura you have them." So I
Mm.
had to recover from C-section surgery without pain meds. So yeah, and then I went into a depression.
Mhm.
And it's just so hard to get out when you think that your life is this is it. That
Right.
you're a horrible person. This is it. Started having dark thoughts. And eventually I did have to, get myself out of that. But
Mm.
it didn't seem to get any better. And then all throughout this, um, what's going on is this thread of jealousy over what I don't know, always accused of cheating.
Mhm.
Like I have time when I'd had multiple jobs and children and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know where I would have found the time for that, but um, so that's always a thread. And then, you know, another thing was my weight. My self-esteem was bad. So, he accuses me of cheating. It's just easier to eat and comfort myself than, because anytime I started trying to get health conscious, in fact, had a heart issue in there in 2000. If I started going to the gym or eating healthier, oh, then I was trying to get healthy for somebody else.
Oh. You couldn't have done
So,
it for yourself?
no, absolutely not. I'm like, "Oh, I'm just trying to live longer, so I can take care of you and the kids." So, yeah, I mean, it's amazing how beaten down that you get and you don't realize it because it doesn't happen all at once. It happens a little bit over time. But I
Mhm.
mean, there were good times in there too. I don't want anybody that doesn't know anything about abuse to go, "Ah, well, if it was so bad." No, I mean, we had family vacations. We had, births and
Yep.
celebrations and things in between there sprinkled in there. So,
Yep.
but when the bad starts outweighing the good, it makes for it makes for a very confusing life.
Yes.
So,
Yes. How did you get out?
Um, well, it happened in 2017. I actually didn't have insurance. This is a little bit of a story. So I got so sick. I had gallstones so badly that I had to start eating fat free because I had no insurance. So I wouldn't get sick so often. I lost a lot of weight eating fat free and I started exercising a little bit just to kind of help that. Lots of fighting and carrying on, but as I'm feeding myself and my family, we're all kind of losing weight.
Right.
So, just trying to survive and work and raise a family. And his drinking had gotten really bad at that point. I'd lost over 100 pounds.
Wow.
And he he was jealous.
Uh,
I'm like, you have absolutely nothing to be jealous of. I'm
yeah.
not going anywhere. I've been here all this time. And he ended up drinking and getting very, very drunk while he and I were cooking out. And it just progressed and got worse. And he was screaming at me, trying to name somebody specifically. And my middle child took my youngest elsewhere while we were kind of fighting. And my oldest was out with friends. My middle one called my oldest. He was on his way there. And while the kids were gone, I got beaten severely. And I didn't call the police. My oldest child did.
Mm.
And he decided to run from the police. And um, they caught up with him and took him to jail, and that was the last time. And the day prior, I had he stressed me out so bad, I called in to work, just because I was just so sick to my stomach, and went to the doctor and got back, and he thought I was meeting somebody.
Oh,
And yeah, I know. I was had a doctor's note and everything. Okay. And he decided to shoot at me.
oh my.
Yeah, I still have the hole in my wall from that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've hung something over it because I don't even want to look at it. But
Yeah.
um um and if anybody's never had a gun fired near them, good, but it
Mhm.
is super loud and scared me. He wasn't pointing it quite at me, but in the area, I guess he was trying to make a point.
Okay.
So and then all of a sudden he realized what he'd done, and then we had to get in his truck and go somewhere for a little while in case somebody called the police. Um, and came back home, and really it was just probably 36 hours of just fighting and silent treatment and just a
Mhm.
mixture of all of that. But, I was I'd call I we were cooking out um the next day, just trying to I was trying to calm down the situation, and that's when he just kept drinking and grilling and drinking and grilling, and it just got bad. And
Yeah.
um nobody ever them wants their children to see their dad taken away in a police car.
Mhm. Right.
I know I didn't. I was glad that my youngest one wasn't there, that his
Mhm.
sister had taken him somewhere else, and um, just didn't know what to do. But my daughter, when she was trying to tell the police that somebody that uh, he did own a weapon, she slipped down the hill and hurt herself. So not only did I have to take myself to the hospital, I took her to the hospital. So we spent most of the evening there. But it's also hard when you're in the room with your daughter, and the police officer goes, "I'm sorry, but we have to get pictures."
Mhm.
I never wanted my daughter to see that, you know, that and then I never realized when he was drinking, he'd spit food at me, and I had it all in my hair and all over my shirt. I didn't even realize it.
Uh,
I'm in self-preservation mode, so the pictures were just, oh, beyond horrible. And
mhm.
um, just bruises and things like that. So it was just a very, very hard situation.
Yeah.
It's I guess it was harder for me to was worried about what my kids had to see and go through than what I actually felt like I did. Because I've
Yeah.
had my therapist ask me, "What about you? What about what you went through?" It's like, "Yeah, but my kids had to see their dad taken away." And then the next day they wanted us to go to court. So we didn't get much sleep. We went to court, and I had to sit there in front of my abuser and tell the judge that, yes, I did fear for my life. One
Mhm.
of the hardest things I had to say, because I almost couldn't get it out.
Yep.
And then while we're sitting there, um, my phone and my daughter's phone were blowing up, telling us that he was on the news, and people were posting it on Facebook. And I'm like,
Oh.
oh no.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, this news crew had stood on the street outside my house. They didn't come on my property and film my house with my address. And even
Oh.
though news people, they can't say, well, who the victim is, they can say who the abuser is. And then there's my address. It was just beyond mortifying.
Yeah.
And then I was concerned that people would start coming, and they did for like a week, 2 weeks, driving by my house really slow because I live in a small rural area, driving by my house real slow, just slowing down and pointing. And that's horrible.
Yeah.
It's like a big circus that you don't even want to be a part of.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's been interesting,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't wish this on somebody I didn't even like. I mean, it
Yeah.
just not even just the verbal parts of it. I've
Right.
had people ask me what's worse, physical or verbal. Well, I used to think it was verbal because the physical heals, but the older I've gotten, I have issues that are popping up
Mm-hmm.
from all the physical stuff that I went through. I
Yeah.
have a traumatic brain injury from multiple blows to the head and
Yeah.
being strangled, and I have hearing loss from being hit, and um, and then now fibromyalgia,
Mm.
how chronic pains link to severe trauma because you've been tense for so long and almost like in a combat situation, like a veteran.
Yeah.
And then it pops up later because I'm like, why do I hurt so bad?
Mm-hmm.
And my doctor goes, after everything else you've been through, it's chronic pain, it's fibromyalgia,
Yeah.
because your nerves are on edge for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Now it feels like I'm on fire.
Trained
Or
yourself.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because of being in self-preservation mode.
Right.
So I don't know. Physical can crop up later and bite you in the neck. So
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I think it's all bad. All of
Yes,
it's bad.
I agree.
So I don't know when people go, what's worse? That one question I can deal with. The why did you stay or what did you do questions
Mm-hmm.
always get me. Well, what did you do?
Yeah.
I didn't, in hindsight, I didn't do really much of anything,
Mm-hmm.
but, why did I stay? Oh, that's a loaded question that
Mm-hmm.
if you've never been through abuse, and I hope people that are listening haven't, don't ever ask that.
Yeah. For
So,
me, when people would ask me that, my only answer could be fear. I didn't
absolutely.
know how I was gonna manage on my own because I had been convinced I wasn't capable of, like, being on my own. I
Right.
didn't know how I was gonna financially handle myself because I was convinced he was the reason for everything. I mean, I couldn't make a single decision to save my life. So the
Right.
fear of I can't function on my own holds you in that situation more than you care to ever admit that it does. And that's always been my answer to people is unless you've experienced, you have no idea, but truly the fear of not even making it through, honestly, if I left and he came and found me and shot me in the head or whatever, like that holds
Right.
you so close to that relationship because you fear for so many factors.
Yeah, that fear of the unknown, and I've told people, I said, I went back because it's better the devil you know than the one that you don't.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know what they're doing, you know what to expect. It's not pleasant, but you
Right.
know what to expect. But if you don't aren't with that person, you don't know. And the final time that I left, that was so true because he got put in jail. He violated that protective order 3 times.
Yep.
And because and I'm so glad my adult children helped me with that. He wants to blame all me, and that's fine. I will take the blame. But they were the ones that said, Mom, you got to report this to the police, or Mom,
Yep.
you can't going through this anymore. And I appreciate that because you get into almost like a trance, like a robotic type mode,
Yeah.
because that's how you preserved your sanity or whatever you had left of it.
Yeah.
So
It's true.
that whole fear of the unknown, I think.
Mhm.
Plus, I think there's always
Right.
that hope that they really are sorry and they really are going to change, and they really just don't.
Ever.
No.
Ever.
And when I'm trying to, when I have people that I know that are going, I can tell they're going through that.
Mhm.
No, I mean, all you can do as a support person is say, I'm here for you. When you are truly done, you will truly know,
Mhm.
but don't wait too long because it can be too late. Because the average time going back to your abuser is 7 times. I went back 5.
Mhm.
So I'm never going to judge anybody for that. But
Right.
if I had gone back again, he probably would have killed me.
So I tell people in an abuse situation, there's like this moment where the veil is lifted and you see the mask of the real person. Like the real abuser is there all of a sudden. There's no mask in front of it, there's no facade. It's like beaming in your face. And
Exactly.
I got out when that happened. But then when I started evaluating with my counselor the situation
Mm-hmm.
11 years prior, there were probably 4 or 5 times that the veil came off
Mm-hmm.
and I saw it, but I justified something else.
Is
But
denial,
yeah,
maybe?
but there is that one moment where it was like, "Ee, here it is." And if you
Right.
don't see it this time, shame on you. Like there, I think in any situation. So as you're like looking at other people that are experiencing it, I really want to look at them and say, at some point the veil will come off, but watch for it because it'll come off before you even like realize, you know, because then
Yeah.
maybe it'll help them come out earlier than I did.
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think the majority of abusers are narcissists
Oh yeah.
that I worked in the Department of Correction. I love that job, but there are times when you had clients, that's what I call them, clients, that they had that wild animal look.
Oh yeah.
That was the look that he gave me that night.
Hmm.
And I recognized that look just from working
Hmm.
with criminals, but it's like, oh, there's nothing behind that.
Yep.
And so that veil, like you said, came off, and I was like, I could possibly die. I mean,
Mhm.
that did occur to me. And that last episode, he had me down on the ground, beating my head on the ground to the point where I blacked out.
Mhm.
Um, well, he had, I guess, knocked me down, and I hit the corner of my bed, and it scraped my hair on the back of my neck all the way up, almost like it just like scraped it off.
Oh.
And what's bad is, and the house was so destroyed. He destroyed the house. I mean, there was food, there was glass. I mean, it was, when I came back home from the hospital early that next morning, I was like, oh my gosh. And those were things in court, pictures of me, pictures of the house,
Mhm.
you know, that, you know, I know other people had to see, and it's not a side that you of yourself that you want to show anybody.
Right.
And I think a lot of times abuse victims we're kind of control freaks. We control what the world sees because we're trying to control our own normal, or
Mhm.
our children's own normal. So I'm still kind of a control freak, but not in a negative way, I hope. But it's just like, I don't know. It, it's just, a lot of times people say, oh, I had no idea. Well, exactly. I didn't want you to have an idea. I don't
Yeah.
even want you to take a glimpse of what I had to live through. So,
So this is super random, but we now can go to like a restaurant and I'll see a couple and I'll go, oh, that poor lady. Or sometimes it's a man, that poor
hmm
man, the way they sit, the way they're looking at him, just like with this almost exhausted look as this other person's just, in public. And
right.
I think back, like, how many times did people look at me like that because they knew something was going on? I apparently was in denial all the way. It's crazy once you go through it now what you see when you're looking at other people.
Exactly.
It's insane.
It,
Now, did your family or friends try to tell you, like, hey, something's wrong, you should get out now along your path?
they did. My best friend, she he called her when he was drunk during that evening,
Mhm.
and she's like, you, Laura, you got to go. I need to come pick you up, or you got to go. And I'm like, I got this. I can handle it. That's forever going to be what I say, even though I probably don't got this. I got this, and my mom and dad, they said that that was like the hardest thing to sit there and watch.
Yeah.
And, after the fact, having to have conversations of things that happened to me and I had to do. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not lying for him anymore. I'm not hiding anything. I'm not going to sit there and wave a flag on the street corner and say, hey,
Right.
this happened to me. But if somebody asks me, I'm going to tell them.
Yeah.
It's not pretty, and it's not, desirable, and it's not a Hallmark movie, my life, but it might be more like a Lifetime movie. But um, I'm not gonna sugarcoat things anymore. I'm not gonna lie. Not that I was a liar, but keeping things from people that you care about is lying, essentially.
100%. Yeah.
So, I don't do that anymore. When people
Yeah.
go, hey, what do you think? Do you really want to know what I think? You
That's
either
me.
do, or you want to hear what you want to hear, but I'll tell you what I think if that's really what you want to know.
I'm
I
the
just
one I'm the one that goes, "Do you want the honest thing or do you want me to walk around it for you?"
Yeah, exactly. So it's just
Yes.
you know, and I've
Uh,
had people tell me, oh, well, you just want people to feel sorry for you. No, I really don't. I'd
mm-mm,
prefer that they didn't know that I ever went through something like this, but
right.
I don't want somebody to go down the same path. So if just one person hears my story and goes, wow, that sounds like me,
Yeah.
maybe they'll get out if they can safely, of course.
Right.
I never judge anybody.
Mm-mm.
That whole "why didn't you get out" question.
Yes.
People have no idea what levels of safety and
Yeah.
how much worse it is after the fact, um, because you don't know what they're doing.
Right.
It's even more dangerous and once you get out because they're like, oh, she's not buying this, or he. I mean, it can be men too,
Right.
although men are less likely to report it,
Yes.
and women, if the women are abusers, they're likely to pretend to be the abused, which I enrages me greatly. But um, if if you're the abuser realizes, hey, they're not buying this, they're not coming back,
Mm-hmm.
and they become even more enraged and
Yeah.
start getting irrational with stuff. So
Yeah. My counselor told me the only way to officially get rid of your abuser is to go no contact. And at first, it will be the worst thing you've just ever decided
absolutely.
to do. But after a couple days, couple weeks, couple months, whatever, the abuser will finally realize that you're just not playing the game anymore.
Right.
And they will just go find a new victim, honestly. That's really where it's at. And it was months of him trying every angle, contacting everybody he could,
Right.
stalking me, stalking my parents, and sending me pictures in front of my parents' house saying something about my parents, like telling on
Mhm.
himself. That is the hardest piece of all
Exactly.
of that, but it is absolutely the only way you can like knock it off completely. And I commend you. You had kids with yours. I did not, thank God. I don't know how you manage no contact when you know you've got kids that you have to take care of and, potentially share between the
Mhm.
2. Oh, girl. Oh,
Well, I had to do an emergency protective order.
yeah.
Once I said, "Yes, I feel like, Your Honor, I feel like I'm in
Yes.
danger, my children are in danger." Probably not as much my kids, but I could totally have seen him use my kids
Yes.
to torture me.
Yeah.
But, I had the emergency protective order. Now, my abuser was a hardhead. He violated 3 times and went to jail, and each time his mother would call me and ask me why I'm putting her son in jail, and I'm like, "He's putting himself in jail. Himself. I
Yeah.
did not do that, but he's not gonna bully me."
Right.
So, but, and that was a difficult situation. She had gone through domestic abuse, and
Hmm.
all while he and I were married, I'd go help her, you know, and things like that, and she'd tell me about that. But I think she was a narcissist too. I don't know. It's like, "Oh,
Uh,
my baby can do no wrong." And
yeah.
it's just like, yeah, he's doing bad, bad things. I'm just not even gonna say what all
It's
he's put me
terrible.
through. But yeah, he had to stay with her. And you're right. After he tortured me for probably um a couple of months. And then there was
Mhm.
just a couple of months where unless I had to go to work, I just couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
I'd sit in there with my dog and watch TV. I mean, I made sure that my kids ate, but it's like, I don't even want to leave the house. I don't want to leave my bedroom.
Mhm.
I put my pajamas on Friday night and they, came off Monday morning when I took a shower. I know that sounds gross and awful, but I was so depressed and
Yeah.
I was grieving this death of this marriage that really never existed. So it was a
Yeah.
conflict. It's like, oh, I'm grieving this. I felt like I was all in, but I don't know that narcissistic abusers can actually love somebody in the truest sense of the word. I think
No.
they use them. They
Mhm.
use them for, to stroke their own ego.
Mhm.
And
They
I'm
love
not
the
sure.
power we can give them because
Right.
they were able to pull one off, but they're really not loving the person they're with.
No, and I don't even think they love themselves that much. I
Oh,
just
no.
think that they want to cause so much misery around them that
Mhm.
their misery with themselves isn't as bad. I don't know.
Yes.
It's a theory that I have working, but I just, I had to, and then I had to spend a lot of time, with my kids or myself and figure out, well, the old Laura liked this, and well, I like this, and so, and just discovering who I was again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
after a couple months of mourning, basically, and well, between mourning and him torturing me, I, decided, what, I'm leaving the house. I'm gonna get out and do this.
Mhm.
I'm not a shut-in anymore.
Yeah.
So I had to give myself permission, I guess. And I think you do ultimately. I think you have to have a grieving process and a rediscovery process, and you have to, then give yourself permission to be happy
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and move forward.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I would say people that are in this situation, the few people I know that are in it that I've advised is just find a counselor to get started.
mhm,
And the resources that between them and the police department have, they can get you out. They can actually set a whole plan. I mean, it's like weeks
mhm,
in advance of a plan, but you can safely be removed from the environment. It does take some planning though. Like unless you're
mm,
in immediate danger and like you have to get out now.
right,
You can get it done in a couple weeks, and that's something I learned after the fact. My
right,
counselor's like, "Man, I wish I would have met you prior to having to be at the end of this because I could have helped you in different ways." So if
mhm,
you're in the situation, I've just been telling people just find a counselor because tell your spouse, "I'm just trying to be a better person for you and I this is the best way I think I can do it." It doesn't matter what you talk about when you're there. He doesn't have to know that. She doesn't have to know
mhm,
that, whatever. But they
right,
can be a great starting point. Um, huge starting point.
exactly. Well, I mean, not all the times I was told I was crazy, that would have been a
Oh,
great idea.
oh,
But, or if whenever we'd go to couples counseling, then it would all be, well, she's the crazy
oh
one,
yeah.
and then he'd
Mhm.
declare the counselor a quack, and I'd
Mhm.
continue to talk to them, which was nice for a little while until he was like, you should be fine. You're
Mhm.
done. You're done." But, it was nice for somebody to objectively listen and
Mhm.
tell me I'm not crazy.
Yes.
Even though that's the whole preface of abuse, is them making you think that you're crazy, where you work against yourself.
It's true.
So
It's true.
sadly, it is. Yeah.
We tried couple counseling one time. So you go to the first appointment together, and kind of
Mhm.
deal out your stuff. And the counselor said, "Okay, I want to meet with each of you independently next time, and then we'll do another session together just so I get a better idea. You can be open and honest." We got to the next session together, and him and the counselor had made friends and started hanging out on the side. Have no idea what he said when they were in there together, but the counselor looked at me and basically blamed me for everything, and they were like hanging out as buddies.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like,
I don't think that's professional.
it is not.
I don't
That's like
think I
against
think
all
that's
code.
I'm like, wow, okay. Um,
Terrible, terrible.
yeah,
So they're
that's not even good
crazy.
at all. Yeah.
It's crazy. Um, okay, so I just want to, I guess, go back on one thing you talked about, the financial abuse.
Mhm.
You said I didn't even know that was a thing, and I do
Mhm.
think that's something that people have no idea exists. And I do think it exists not necessarily by itself. It's usually coupled with several
Oh
types
yeah.
of abuse. Do you want to touch a little more on that?
Yes, abusers like to control all aspects of your environment. So I'm the kind of person, if he liked to isolate me. Obviously, he did not know who he was dealing with. I can sit and read a book and be perfectly fine, or sit and write in my journal
Yeah.
and not say a word. And he was like, you can see his face, like, "Ah, that didn't work out the way that I thought."
Yes.
But um, so financial abuse, when we got married, we had together finances. My parents have been married, gosh, 48 years now.
Yeah.
And, they always shared finances. So that's how, when we got married, that's what we did. And I thought, well, okay, that's the way that it has to be. Okay. So he would contribute, I would contribute. We made a budget, we had bills. It started off okay. And then I had our first child, and I had to not work for a little while. And then we were just trying to exist on his. And then he was getting um, kind of, I don't know, if it was like an anxiety about being the only breadwinner for a little bit, he'd spend money. And
Oh,
I'm like, we don't have enough for this. What's up with that? Well, we had together finances for years. So at one point when we split up and then got back together, we decided that was one of our issues.
okay.
So, because before we'd have together finances and um, he didn't like how it was going, I always had to bail us out, would work overtime or whatever.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to put myself and you on a allowance, and then he overspent. When you both have debit cards, I would
Yeah.
leave my debit card at home unless I was shopping, grocery shopping, but
Right.
I stuck to my allowance, but he didn't. So, and apparently when you have substance abuse issues and
Yeah.
possible entertaining other women issues, that gets costly.
Yes.
So, once we got back together, a major time that we were apart, we decided we're going to have our own checking accounts. We still do the budget together
Mhm.
and split it down the middle. I thought, okay, that sounds reasonable. Let's try that. I kept my part of the bargain. He'd overspend. Ooh, I can't get you my part this time. Catch you next week, babe. It's like, it was the same thing, only different. And the way that he was controlling me is he knew where I was. I was working overtime trying to, do his part.
Right.
And we couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't do anything. So, they do things like that. At one point when I was out of work, I had to put us on a really tight budget.
Mhm.
He took over the checkbook. I didn't get anything. And I said, I have to do the grocery shopping. He'd give me so much money. So I got to the point I was a couponer. Um, he'd give me cash. And I got to the point where I could have a little bit left over and try and, hang on to some money just in case I got cut off. And which was quite frequently, oh, well, you
Oh
didn't
yeah.
do this, so you get no money.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
It's
you
a
didn't do this,
yeah.
so, no.
It's a consequence.
So it is. It's a
Mhm.
punishment, and
Yeah.
he kept using that. I mean,
Mhm.
they'll keep money from you. They'll regulate how much you have. They won't give you the debit card.
Yep.
Oh, well, we can't pay the mortgage and it's your fault. And then you're trying to, make, arrangements. Hey, if I pay a little bit more, and that can dig you into such a deep hole. I'm going through bankruptcy right now because I assumed everything
Yeah.
just to get away from him.
Mhm.
And now he's, debt free almost. So,
Crap.
but the peace is worth it. So,
100%.
yeah.
I think the further I've gotten out of my situation, now that I'm in a great relationship and I know how a healthy relationship should work, just to be able to sit on the couch for one night and just breathe and just go, "Oh my gosh, it is wonderful." And
Mhm.
you have no idea how much value you have in that until you're kind of past your situation and you're like, "Oh, at night I don't have to stress about what punishment am I getting tonight or whatever." I got to the point you mentioned the silent treatment. I got to the point where I almost was begging for the silent treatment over any other punishment because
Mhm.
at least I could just be me, just by myself. And he's not gonna say anything because he's silent treating me right now. So it doesn't matter what
Mhm.
I'm doing. He's not gonna say anything. We went almost 3 full months and he would act like I wasn't even there. And we were coming and going from the same house all day long.
It's kind
It's
of a freedom in that, just
yeah,
temporarily though. But yeah,
it's
he
true.
he would do the silent treatment, and it would be like, okay, I'm gonna read a book. I'm
Yeah,
gonna get this done.
yeah,
I'm gonna interact with the kids. And I think there towards the end, he got to the point where he's like, well, I don't think that silent treatment's working like I
no,
thought. It used to really be a punishment. It's like, oh, come on, please talk to me.
yes,
I'm sorry. No, if
yeah,
I got to the point where I was like, okay, this is nice. We're
mhm,
not arguing. It's cool.
mhm. You do get to that point. It's the weirdest thing.
I know it's eerie because you're like, I should be bothered, but I'm
Yes,
not. It's peace. It's quiet.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then when they realize, oh, well, she's a little too comfortable with the peace, so I'm going to amp it up.
yeah,
That's usually though after the silent treatment, then they would just, it'd be like, oh, I guess I'll talk to you now.
mhm.
Yeah, I guess you're acceptable. It's like, well, crud. Okay.
I know my coming out of the silent treatment, he would always go, well, do you know why I didn't talk to you last week? I don't care. Are we good now? And he would go, no, do you know? And then it was always something like I said the sky was blue and it was purple because it was a sunset. Like that could have been a simple
A
thing.
thing.
Like
Yeah,
legit stupid crap. And then I would have to play the guessing game. But the problem with the guessing game is if you guess wrong, you have a new punishment for guessing wrong on why they gave you the silent treatment for a week.
exactly. Or did you learn your lesson?
Yeah, yes.
No, I don't think I did. Maybe if you could be quiet, a couple more days.
I mean, there's some
Yes,
crazy
I
stuff.
learned my lesson. As
Crazy
I roll
stuff.
my eyes. Yeah.
My husband now, for a long time, I wouldn't even really talk to him about all my stuff because I said, honey, like when I got out of that relationship, I was in such a dark place. And I don't want to revisit the dark place. I just don't want to. I mean, I've gone over it with my counselor and I
Hmm.
don't want to relive it all. Now, through our relationship now, bits and pieces have come out and stories have come out. And he's like, holy cow, I had no idea.
Right.
And it's a sad place. I came out not being able to make a single decision for myself because I didn't trust that I was a good enough person to make a decision on my own because you're just trained to not believe anything you say. You're trained to think you're crazy and that everything they say is right. And so when you get out, all of a sudden you're like, what do I do now? Like I haven't
Yeah.
had to make a decision.
It's like you go, oh crap, I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna
Yeah.
fail.
Yes.
But you don't. Although when it was weird when all of this went down. This is in September of 2017. That day I didn't go to work. That day it happened, um, they were closing the prison that I worked at, and that's like my ultimate favorite job. Love that job. I was a computer teacher
Hmm.
at a juvenile female facility, and I loved my job.
Yeah.
And they were closing it.
Mm.
And 2 weeks later, my dad, he's like, I don't want to put a lot on you, but I've got something I need to tell you. My mom got a cancer diagnosis, so
Oh
it's
my gosh.
like, oh, it's the trifecta. Okay. And then,
Yeah.
I'm losing my job and all of this is going on and Christmas is coming up.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, I had good friends at the time that were like, well, that shop with the cop thing, you're going to have to sign up for that.
Yeah.
You know what? You might have to go to the food pantry.
Right.
And I'm thinking, I can't possibly go to the food pantry. There are
Hmm.
people that need it worse than me. No, actually, there's a time when you need it. If you need it, you need it.
Right.
And the
Hmm.
domestic violence advocate that was working with me goes, Laura, it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about feeding those kids. And she was absolutely right. I mean, not that I didn't want to feed them, but it's like, oh, how is this going to look? Who cares?
Right.
You've been in survival mode for so long.
Yeah.
It's a different type of survival mode. You're having to
Yes.
reestablish and start over.
Yes.
So,
It's so bad. Do you have any last minute advice for people that are maybe reading or watching this and going, "Oh my gosh, this is all me." Like
mm,
resonating to their heart?
I would agree. If you can find a counselor, great. That's not always the easiest thing. I
Right.
know a lot of times employers, if they're employed, have like an employee assistance program, and
Yeah.
3 to 5 sessions are free.
Yeah.
A local domestic violence advocate, they keep it private and confidential, and can help with an escape plan. That's what I call it. I think it's
Yep.
called a
It's true.
safety plan, but it's an
It's true.
escape plan.
Yeah.
Um, and can help you plan these things if you can plan it. If not, you have to do what you can do safely.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter what other people think. You have to do what you can do safely.
Yes.
So it's all about safety and protection. We don't want to hear about anybody else on the news dying, but unfortunately, I feel like I hear about 1 or 2 people a week,
Hmm.
and it makes me want to cry every time because that did not have to happen.
Right.
But and then I get a cold chill. That could have been me the next
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
So, nobody ever deserves to be bullied, you know, and it's amazing once you get away from that person, you go, "Ugh, it wasn't as bad as I thought," or wow. And then you start getting this anger that you allowed that stuff to go on, and that
Yes.
it really was a different way than what you originally saw it. But no one ever deserves to be bullied. no one deserves to have dominion over another person like that.
Mm-hmm.
So a person has to do what they can do to get out safely. And abusers deliberately keep resources from you so you're dependent on them.
Yeah.
There are always resources available, even if you have to get out. And I've read about women that got out and just had their bra and underwear,
Mm-hmm.
had to go to a shelter and start over. If you have to, you have to. It's just stuff.
Yes.
There's no replacing your life.
Yeah.
So when you come to those realizations, you're ready.
Yeah.
So
I just, anybody out there, you're not alone. There's been several people before you, and, don't be the news story if you don't have to be. It will be the scariest thing you've ever done, and it will take some major strength that you have no idea you have, but it'll be totally worth saving your life later, for sure. And all the young people that are potentially watching this, don't ignore the red flags. I had them all throughout my relationship. You mentioned you had them early on in your relationship. They're there for a reason, and follow the gut. And you mentioned when you're young, you ignore all flags.
exactly.
um, Listen to your parents maybe for once in your entire life. Like my son's 19, and there are times where he'll bring up something with a girl, and I'm like, oh, honey, you don't need that. You don't need that. I don't care how hot she is. You do not need that.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah. All right. So quick rundown of like where you are now, and the positivity that at least is coming of what you are currently.
I am working for a great social service organization. It's a part of the government, so I can't really say what it is,
It's
but I
okay.
love my job, customer service.
Good.
All three of my kids still live with me, which is fine.
Yeah.
And I've been in a relationship for almost 3 years with a really great man.
Yay. Great.
So yeah, it's nice to be when you go, wow, I had no idea men really did treat women like that.
Yes.
That's cool.
Good.
And it's funny because I can be zany and silly and, not have to be on guard all the time, which is nice. Although
Yeah.
sometimes he probably thinks that, what did I get myself into? But I also, started an inspirational Facebook page. I call it the DV, Walking Wounded, as in domestic violence. Um, I know whenever you see walking wounded, it's usually referring to veterans, and no disrespect to them at all. But when you're in domestic violence, you are in a combat situation, a domestic combat situation at all times, never knowing who the enemy is really,
Yeah.
and never knowing where it's coming from. So I also started a blog called the DV Walking Wounded. It's on WordPress. It's dvwalkingwounded.wordpress.com.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to start a podcast, I think,
Yeah.
on resources for people, who are currently in domestic violence or
Yeah.
surviving it. It's just kind of, because you have no idea. The resources kind of flow into all avenues, financial, childcare, self-care.
Yeah.
What a concept, self-care.
Yeah.
I have all this time now, to do these things that I always wanted to do, and I don't know what to do with myself now.
Yeah.
Now,
That's where I'm
so
at. Mine went to college, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh,
now what?
let's do something new. And
Yeah,
thank goodness
exactly.
my husband's like in full support, because I couldn't manage it all on my own. So good for you, though. I know that's how we connected, and I know you're really working on getting that started. And I'm excited to see where it goes, and I can follow it. That it's obviously dear to my heart what you're going to be discussing and talking about. And so I just think it's fantastic that you're throwing it out there. So
Thank you. I'm just trying. I had a therapist that was great, but he
yeah,
was a man and wanted me to
okay,
talk about what another man did. And I'm like, sorry, you're a great guy, but I can't do that. So he's like, okay, well, we don't have any female ones available in this area right now. So he said, keep talking about what happened. It doesn't ever totally neutralize what happened to you, but
right,
it starts desensitizing you to it,
yes,
and as well as helping other people. He told me to write. I love writing. I've
hmm,
been writing on my blog, and
yeah,
trying to write a book, and I write articles and things like that. So, the more that you get it out there, the less it has power over you.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
think it's
where I'm at.
amazing.
Yeah.
I think
Thank
it's
you.
awesome, and congratulations on all the success that you've had with the blog and all that so far, and just getting your life back on track. It's a tough road to be on. I've traveled it too, so I understand it, and I just think it's awesome what you've done. So
Well, thank you.
you're
I'm glad you got
welcome.
out too.
Yeah, me too. All right. Any last words? Or are you good?
Um, I'm just gonna leave you with my one of my favorite quotes. It's
Okay.
by the General Hannibal. Find a way or make one.
Ah, okay. Or make one. See, I'm making notes so I can do that. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today for our wonderful interview. We are so blessed to have people that are willing to share their story and hopefully find some people that can relate and get some hope and resources for their situation. If you like what we're doing, we're just asking you to subscribe to the channel, follow us, and really kind of hear what we have to say. We've got some cool stuff coming up. I'm interviewing some amazing people that have come out of my podcast community group, stories I didn't even know existed that are just willing to share with everyone. So please continue to follow us every Friday for our published podcast. So we'll talk to you all later. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.